Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Mission Genealogy. I am Barbara Etienne, your ringleader here at Mission Genealogy, but I'm also the ringleader over at Project Kin, and that's kind of the point. Mission Genealogy is here to help all of us as family historians and genealogists learn together, learn from each other, and discover new and creative ways to use this platform we've called home as Substack to its best possible use for all of us in our shared interest in family stories. So in these sessions, I started them together with my wonderful collaborator, Robin Stewart of Genealogy Matters here on Substack. She's the one who produces the weekly GenStack newsletter. She's now moved on to focus on other activities, but in the meantime, I still host these as the office hours sections, and then we have twice a month in two different time zones, the Mission Genealogy roundtables, and mostly to keep my own head straight. I schedule these at what I call the two different time windows that I can handle from California in the Atlantic friendly time zones, which are, from California's perspective, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, or 6 and 7 p.m. in Europe for now British Standard Time or continental European time. And I occasionally have a cat wander by. That's Sarah Beth. And then in our Pacific time, we handle those 4 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock Pacific or Eastern time. Europe should be asleep by now, and because it's after midnight. The late morning and early morning, depending on where you are, New Zealand to Australia. So with that as a beginning, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to all of you. I hope somebody's out there with a good question ready to go. Not you, Zerba. We'll be ready. There's ferals walking by. Ready to kick this off for our office hours question and answer. So who's got a question? Didn't I? Oh, go ahead, Marcy. There you go.
Has anyone else had the experience of trying to change or update your profile on your publication? And as you do all the things and then you press save, it says something went wrong. We're not sure
Yes.
what.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've had that
Yes.
too.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really long? Because I noticed mine was really, really, really long. And what browser do you use? Because I was using Safari, and when I switched it over to Chrome, I was finally able to save, but I had to pull out a lot. I had been putting a lot of stuff into it. I had a lot of photographs. I yanked them all out, and I slimmed it down, moved it into Chrome, and was finally able to save. It's taken me 6 months to figure out that hack.
Ooh. Well, first of all, welcome, Deborah. Deborah, you may know, has been our columnist running a series of Substack tips that are published in Mission Genealogy. Welcome, Deborah. You know, I think several of you just answered that question. It sounds like a bug, and it sounds like a compatibility bug with Safari. And you also answered with a really good tip buried in there, which is if you're using Safari and something doesn't work, switch browsers. That's true for Substack or anything else. And honestly, I can't say it's not Safari's fault. Yes, it is a compatibility issue for Safari. Safari, this is Apple's own browser, has made a number of very intentional decisions in how the browser works that are designed consistent with their positioning of privacy. They know that most people using Safari will also have another browser handy. It doesn't kind of matter what it is. You will find that Chrome is by far the most compatible browser. It is probably also the most intrusive from a privacy perspective. What I personally do is I use Safari as my default browser, and then jump over to Chrome as soon as something doesn't work. And I do that for privacy reasons. And I have certain applications, like the way I run my Gmail, that only work on Chrome because I use a plugin from HubSpot that lets me do blah, 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 separate conversation. But it's, that's a real, you've answered the question. And by the way, I do think the problem may have been the length of the
Yeah.
description that you can have in your profile. So you've probably already done this. Make full use of those links you can include. And you might even use something like Google Docs to do the word count, or even a post. Did you know that in a post you can count words? Even before,
Yeah.
and most usefully, even before a post is released, it'll show you how long it is reading, and it'll tell you how many words and characters, I think. Good one. Was that your question, Marcy? Or was that Diane? I've lost track of whose question that was. That was your
my
question? Do you think that'll answer it, or did you finally solve it yourself?
I haven't solved it yet. I don't have any pictures in it. It was just a matter of changing a few words. And
Probably
so I
word-like.
will have to try a different browser, but it won't be Chrome. I had a lot of problems with Chrome early on, so, and that
Uh-huh.
was way back with
Oh.
my first Mac, so.
Yeah. But you do use a Mac. That's right. So you might have been Safari.
Oh, it was Safari, yes, but
Yeah.
I'll try Edge or
Firefox.
yes, Firefox. That's the other
Brave
one.
is another one. Brave is a clone of the Chrome browser is open source, so it's you have variations of it. Edge and Brave are both variations of Chrome. So they tend to have the same compatibility benefit, but not 100%. I misspent youth doing testing browsers. Really did. Startup founder, gotta tell you. Other questions? All right, I'm gonna drop one in here as a time filler while you think of what your big problems are that brought you here today. So here's my discovery of, how about you, Zerba? Oh, she loves seeing herself. She loves seeing pictures of cats. My discovery, like yesterday, was it seemed that there was a change. It might have been something that I did differently, or a change in Substack's behavior, because they're doing developments. I think they release new changes typically on Tuesdays, but starting like yesterday, maybe Monday, because of the short week here in the United States, I suddenly noticed that when I saw that I had a chat notification, and I hit the chat notification. In my case, I use Chrome, looking at most of my Substack pages. Boom, it opened the app, which I did have installed, but I never used. And by the way, Diane, this is in my chats with you. And I was like, what are you doing? I didn't ask to open that. Stop it, stop it, stop it. And I kept trying to make it stop. And it wouldn't stop. It would just happen every single time. Again, using Chrome. So finally I got pissed, and I went into the to go get the ask, they call it the support widget. And in Chrome, I know it used to appear on my homepage of my dashboard. It now always appears in the posts page. I don't know if that's changed, but in the posts page. So I go to the post page and I ask the chat, what possible benefit is it to me to use your stupid desktop app? By the way, the bot doesn't care if you rant at it. So if you really want to rant, go do it there. Somehow, somewhere deep in my heart, I believe they have AI reading these and bubbling up the ones that have a rant. Anyway, so give it your rant. And then it came back to say, as I expected, to say that the desktop, the app is a cleaner reading experience. I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. That does me no good. I get why you're saying that. The real truth is that in the app, you have more control over my behavior. You know more about what I'm doing than if I'm using the browser, because that's how browsers work. And it finally comes back and says, well, yes, it is the same experience as you get in the browser, But so it keeps going on and on and on. And finally, I figured out the key benefit to using the desktop app is that if you bookmark something to read, it stays there in your queue and you open it up on another app like the phone. You're at your desk and then you go to your phone, it is in your reading queue. Actually, that's a feature to me because I
Yeah.
see some of these wonderful long posts, and especially series, Call Me a Bastard, for example. And I'm like, damn, I need to sit down and read that. Well, I'm busy at my desk. I'm not going to do that at my desk. I'm probably going to do that on the iPad or something. And there's the answer. That's why it's useful to do that, to just because they're not going to be there the next time you open your browser. So then I said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It also is going to reduce the times that Substack is opening all these damn tabs because it's always opening damn tabs. It doesn't let me go see the homepage, the stat for any publication, which I find really annoying, and I don't know why they do that. But it helped me kind of understand why I would possibly use the mobile app on I haven't quite gotten it into my workflow, but that was a discovery for me.
Ah,
Is that helpful?
yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm more confused than that when I started. You're talking about chat. You're talking about something about in the chat.
There is, and I think it's a Chrome app. So I don't even know if you could open this desktop app if you don't have Chrome installed. That's kind of a question to ask, and I frankly didn't have the bandwidth to go figure that one out. But if you use Chrome and download the Substack app, this is a difference. And it's like the app experience on your phone or tablet. And the key benefit to doing that, the fundamental benefit, as far as I can tell, is being able to bookmark long stories to come back to, which is useful, I find.
Yeah.
Well, what irritates me on the chat is they'll say I have one, one person's chatting with me and I'll go and there'll be a whole bunch of green lights that I'm supposed to go check out, I guess, because I guess I hadn't looked at them or something. They said I have one. So go in and just go in and look at them. And then I still have one, it says. And I would like them to bring it all up to the top,
Yeah.
whenever you have new, because I have to go scrolling down to see who has messaged me.
Yeah, I feel you there. I find that you can pin a chat, people that you chat with frequently. You can pin them in the chat, which can be useful. Oh, okay. No worries. Thank you, Diane. You can pin them, which is useful. And I also get super annoyed when, like, I complained about this before. They put the same interface around one-on-one chats as subscriber chats. And I call these subscriber chats in I don't know where they put that. Maybe they do. But for Project Kin's communications with members versus and Mission Genealogy's communications with members versus when you and I talk, Linda, right?
Right.
Cat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not the same at all in behaviors. And I can even repost the Substack formatting behaviors I point because I have it on my wall. Because you can't @name someone in a one-on-one. I guess the theory is that other person can't see it. So why are you @naming them? But you also, I don't understand why they do it that way. And it also is very confusing since it feels like it's in the same interface. But you can in chats to all of your subscribers. Has anybody discovered a really good use for subscriber chat, a good way to use subscriber chat? Like these weekly challenges and things like that. I don't know what to do with that. Anyway, go ahead. Jennifer, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah. No. But Laurie has been using it really well. with her
Yeah,
1 year
she
celebrations.
has.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I haven't come up
Yeah.
with anything myself. But yeah, I thought that's just been perfect use of the chat, I thought. Yeah.
But yet I can't figure out how to translate that to my own stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Me too. I'm never sure whether,
I've tried to use it to post, hey, this is, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I'm never sure whether, my stuff that's very, very, very interesting to me is interesting enough, to pop into the chat and have anyone be sort of interactive with it. Yeah. Yeah. So I have never tried it actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
surprised I ended up having a chat on people that I didn't really okay. Not people, not personal people, but
Oh,
then all
Yeah.
of a sudden I have all these chats of things. I'm looking at this and thinking, I don't remember saying that I really wanted that.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
messes up my whole bunch of chat stuff because this one, I know I can unsubscribe, but these people, who is this guy? I didn't know
Yeah. And you can't just delete the chat, can you? Well, I don't see that you
and
can, but you
if
can.
you, so for every publication you subscribe to,
Yeah.
if they offer a chat, it will appear in your subscriber chats. So you have 3 tabs across the top. One is all, one is, whatever, it's basically subscriber chats, and the other one
Yeah.
is like direct. It says direct.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
one-on-one. And, if you have a subscriber chat where there's like a publication that you occasionally tune into, but you're just not interested in all the chat they're doing, you can go to leave. And I think that leaves the chat, but you remain as a subscriber. I'm not absolutely certain on that.
You
The
can't do that on the desktop, can you? Can you do that in the desktop? I've
I
done that in the
believe so.
mobile, in the app, but right.
I believe so. I can check that.
Yeah.
And still subscribed is the
Yes, you
question.
can leave. I'm just looking at one right
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Okay.
The
leave
other
it.
Yeah.
thing
And
I
I'm
think
leaving
is
it
super,
right now.
there you go. The other thing that I think is super important for everybody who has a publication, I've said this lots of different ways, and it's worth saying again. If you have a publication, I strongly recommend that you take a moment and change the default for your chat so that only subscribers can initiate chat.
Ah, yeah.
Or that subscribe that only you initiate chats, and
Ah,
then allow your subscribers to reply to any chat
yeah.
thread you start. And here's why. Because we know there are, how shall we say, trolls who are
Yeah.
out there on Substack. They are certainly out there. They usually don't last more than a few days before Substack catches up with them and knocks them out. But one of the behaviors for trolls is to go find chats that are open and then pop in and say, hello,
Yeah.
and unwitting people get caught up in this, who are you, what's going on, and then boom, everybody that is a subscriber to that publication is getting notifications that something's happening in this chat. What I have found is when that happens and then they turn around and post some wonderful sounding cause, first of all, do
Yeah.
you really believe that's a valid cause? No. Do you really believe that that post will send money to the valid cause?
Yeah.
That's usually the
Yeah.
trick.
Yeah.
And I have found myself sending direct messages to that publication holder saying, you don't want to do that. Basically, kick them out. And oftentimes, they're people who are not paying attention to their publication. And so this goes on for weeks because they're just not tuned in. That's fine, but it's burning my time and attention. So I leave the chat. And you have a perfectly good publication. Don't encourage people to leave you because some troll came in and starts thropping things in
No.
there. That's
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
2 lessons. One, don't respond when they just say hello. And
Yeah.
2, turn off the ability for your subscribers to start threads, because you're going to disturb everybody, all of your
Yeah.
subscribers. At least that's
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
If I
Okay.
get
I
a
have-
hello message, I automatically go to the block. They
There
have a
you go.
block button.
Yeah.
I
There
do
you go.
too. Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
too.
No second
I
chance.
didn't do that at first, but I do that now. Yep, it took
Yeah.
me a minute to
Yeah.
learn.
I
Yeah.
have one very persistent troll who I will boot out, report. I've reported her. I mean, every 2 weeks, like clockwork, she shows back up. Even though they say, when they boot somebody out, they'll never get back in. Somehow she does. Different email address every time.
So different email and then the same name?
Same name. Yeah. Same profile
Wow.
picture even.
Oh,
Wow. You
Yeah.
don't recognize this person at all? Do you think it's personal?
No, it's I actually think it's probably a bot.
Well, yeah, if it happens like clockwork, it pretty much
Yeah.
has to be.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how are they doing that? I didn't know you could automate that.
Yeah, no,
Speaking of automation, there's a lovely guy named Finn Tropy, I believe is his Substack, who has developed. He's a bona fide developer and has a nifty Substack with tools and whatnot. He's delivered a tool for automating the posting of notes. I started to use it, and frankly, it just it didn't work for me. But he's a really good guy. He's now released a dashboard for that is a higher resolution dashboard for your posts and your tracking the performance of your posts and things like that. It's more comparable to what software development platforms use to see what's working with their subscribers. And if you're all up into the performance of what you're doing, it could be interesting to you. I, you know, I used to use all that stuff for publications, and I kind of try to resist all of that for what I'm trying to do with Project Canon and keep my focus on what I'm trying to do. And as you may have noticed with respect to Mission Genealogy, I don't log in as Mission Genealogy. Mission Genealogy doesn't comment, it doesn't post, it doesn't write notes, it doesn't follow anybody. I appreciate the follows. So if you follow Mission Genealogy, thank you very much. You won't get follows back because there's only so much time in the day. I try to pay attention to who that is and pay attention to myself, because that's telling me who genealogists are.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it as Mission Genealogy, and there may be better ways to do it, but I have to manage my time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
What are tips and tricks you're using to manage your time? Anyone?
Just say
Um,
no.
Yeah.
Deborah Carl gets our badass award. Today's
Yeah.
badass award. I hope that was you laughing. I meant that in good respect and support.
Oh no, I knew how you meant it.
Good, just checking. No, I was talking to, as you will see, I tipped earlier, Diane Burley will be one of our speakers for a new event coming up in July. And she was telling me about an ant and what the different ways this ant was perceived, one of which she always thought was pretty badass. Always liked that. About ancestors. Who were your badass ancestors?
Yeah.
But I'm serious about just saying no. I had this one woman came to me. She's like, I'm just so overwhelmed. At church, there were 2 funerals and they asked people to sign up for food, and she signed up for both. And she's like, you only signed up for one. And it's like, yeah, but your first response is always no, because you can come back and say yes
Yeah.
once you've looked at your schedule and said, oh yeah, I can do that. But when they put you on the spot, the first answer is no.
Right. That way you can say yes to the next one.
Yeah.
Perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. Yeah, managing your time and your attention. This is I actually have designed a bumper sticker that says "Friends don't let friends stay on Facebook." But managing your attention is, I think, so incredibly important, and it's a terrific example of something that platforms are not going to do for you.
Yeah.
Um, uh, the hardware platforms like Apple might try to, because they are battling with the software people for your attention. And that's, the business model, and that's their positioning for, as I was describing earlier, the Safari browser. But by and large, the software platforms will battle each other for your attention. But there's so much money in your eyeballs that they're going to not tell you how to stop it.
Yeah.
Take it back. That's what we're here for. I will say, one of the things that I love about Substack is that when you turn to writing, it actually shuts the rest of the world out. Did you notice that? There's the notifications and all of the little, oh, you just got a note, oh, you just got somebody just followed you. All that stuff just stops while you're
Ah,
writing. That
right.
to me is just the best.
Yeah.
And it has really helped me think about when I'm setting time. Don't 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 pull a pin and toss something that you're waiting for responses to, and then sit down to write.
Mm,
It doesn't matter how you respond to what other people say. Um,
yeah.
but it's I think that's one of the best features. Sometimes, especially for notes, I will sometimes compose separately and then come back. Oh, there's a trick. You know how in chat put in, or particularly in creating a thread in your subscriber chat, you can't put returns. As soon as you hit return, it completes the
Yeah.
post, and then
Yeah.
I think in chats you can't delete a chat that you already made. Once it's out there, it's gone. So
Yeah.
what I do is I compose it entirely separately, where you can have the returns, which is especially useful when you have bullets. There's 3 things we're going to talk about, or our time windows are.
Yeah.
So I write those separately on a Mac in Notes, and then I copy and paste it in, which can be very helpful. One of the things that's deceptive when you do that is it seems as though links are going to be active. You can have in Notes, you can put a piece of text that has a link behind it, so an anchor text and then a link. And if you paste that into a new thread in your subscriber chat, it looks like it's going to be linked. In other words, the text is blue. You hit post, it's not.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So annoying.
Yeah.
The things you learn by doing and
Yeah.
noticing, to be
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
I didn't make a list of things to have as ready to go for tips. Come on, man. Go ahead,
Deborah
Jennifer.
had a good, yep. Deborah had a really good tip this week. It was so simple and I didn't know about it.
Which was that?
How to look at a footnote without going right down to the bottom of the page.
A
Yeah.
mouse over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't even noticed that was a thing.
Yeah,
And
I think it also works, doesn't it, when to see who somebody is, to see their publication? So if I at name you and
yeah.
Bill is reading it, and I think he just has to mouse over to see who you
All
are and
right.
what the name of your publication is.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
didn't notice it at first because it doesn't work when you're writing. It only works after it's been published.
Yeah.
Although, if you want to know what it's going to look like when you publish it, you go copy the secret share link and open it up in another tab.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I will often do that. I started doing that because a lot of times I have co-authors on posts about, I try to have all of my speakers be co-authors on any event. And we're doing that going forward with Jennifer's Speakers Corner series. And I want to share. I can't let you edit something that I am writing on my publication,
Yeah.
but I can send you the share draft link, which actually is another whole topic about collaboration opportunities in Substack. I can
Yeah.
cover that a little bit unless somebody has another question. Linda, you look like you're about to ask a question.
No, I was shaking my head. Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it always depends on what your goals are, right? In why are you here? What are you doing in Substack that you couldn't be doing somewhere else? And for many of us, we are here to grow our Substack for a purpose. Maybe the purpose is simply to get more people. Oh, good. Thank you, Deborah, confirming that. Confirming that the cursor over a person's name works. So why are you here on Substack? And for many of us, it is to grow our publication so that we reach more people. We can find cousins, find an audience, find people of fellow travelers, as I like to say. But for me, I am looking to broadening the audience for what we're doing with Project Kin, and someday I do hope to write a nonfiction book about how to do this kind of storytelling to encourage more people to tell their stories. As you do that, it turns out that your best new subscribers are probably subscribers to somebody else's publication, somebody else who doesn't know who you are. So how do you reach them? Well, if their audience probably also is interested in your content, the reverse is probably also true. So one of the best ways to grow your audience is to collaborate with someone of a similar interest, put together something that would be interesting to both audiences, and let them know. What are the ways to do that? Well, one is to cross post, and you'll notice that if you go to, I think, the 3-dot menu for somebody else's post, you don't even have to ask them for permission, actually. You can disable it so nobody can cross post your posts, but once you've turned that on, anybody can come along and take your post and cross post it to their audience. They're presented with the opportunity to write a little contextual paragraph, and boom, it's done. I don't do that very much for Project Kin because when I cross post somebody else's post to my audience, I have no control where that post goes in my Substack. And as many of you know, I use sections pretty heavily or separate newsletters pretty heavily. And it just messes with my mojo to not have control over all that. I might, it's more in the future, but that's sort of a general reason. I do like doing co-authors where you might even work on it as a Google Doc, as a shared document somewhere else, and then you can post it to one or the other of your publications and have two authors. But if you're the co-author on somebody else's publication, that article does not appear. It appears in your list of activities and posts, but it will not appear in your publication. However, you can take that post. So, for example, Jennifer now has will have a series for Project Kin as the Speaker's Corner. Deborah has a tips that she writes for Mission Genealogy. In both cases, those are going out as Project Kin or Mission Genealogy posts. But each of them can take that same post and send it to their audiences, either as a cross post, again, the little 3-dot menu, and then add as a contextual reference, or you can write your own post to your own audience that contextualizes that post and embeds that other post. So I've done that, for example, when Jane Hutchin in Australia did a series for Project Kin, the Forget Me Not series, and she did a wonderful post introducing that. Rather than just cross-posting that to my audience, I took her post, embedded it in my own post, and sent it to my audience. So my audience saw her name, saw who she is, and say, oh, that's pretty cool. I should subscribe. Well, I also had a whole series where she was the lead author, really. So there's lots of ways to do that. And then finally, my favorite is using Substack Live. Let's see. Linda, have you done a Substack Live with me? Deborah? RC, I don't think you've done it. Bill, I know you have. So I try to spread the wealth, but let me tell you, doing a Substack live with somebody else as their guest, and you can have up to 2 guests, introduces that other person to your subscriber list, so that all your subscriber list has to do is click subscribe on their Substack. So it's almost a gift to them. And by the way, it makes you look good because you're giving back to the community. And I want to pay it forward, and I tend to think that works rather well. Bill, Jennifer, do either one of you? Okay, thank you, Deborah. Bill, Jennifer, do either one of you want to comment on having done Substack Lives and how that helps your subscription? Specifically what it's done for you and on the subscriber side.
Yeah. My subscribers sat at, I can't even remember what it sat at, but whatever the level was for a long time, you know. And once I started, after my first live, I picked up quite a few new subscribers, and it was great because they were newsletters that I hadn't come across before, you know. So, and it's happened you can see the spike every time I don't know, I think I've done 3, I think. Yeah, and you can see the spike each time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great. How about you, Bill?
Yeah, I've really had the same experience. It kind of interesting to watch to see, who shows up, who
Yeah.
but yeah, no, my subscribers and followers both actually jumped, anytime I was on live.
Yeah.
And besides that, it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, they
I
are
can't
fun.
explain why it's fun, but it is, isn't it?
We have too much of a good time, but
Yeah.
I think there's several. I haven't really highlighted this much. I can start to list a bunch of the best practices for doing Substack Lives, and I know it's terrifying the first couple of times. But I would really encourage you to consider doing. I always welcome you to be guests on my Substack Live, but I would encourage you to do your own as well. I have both Mission Genealogy and Project Kin, and ironically, I only have like a 25% crossover, which is amazing to me. But for whatever reason, that's not there. That's okay. And Linda, you've been a guest for me on so many different programs. I don't know if I was doing Substack Lives yet at the time. What I try to do is I have them booked every Sunday, which has taken me a little while to remember that I'm doing that. But that's helpful because then I just have a routine. My routine is to have as my guest whoever my speaker is at my programs during the week. I lean, of course, to Project Kin, which is why I'm not opening it up in general. But if you've got a good hook for me, we can probably find a way to find a time. There's usually once or twice a month when I have something that I'm trying to think of to do. So keep that in mind. It's kind of an open invitation. In fact, as I said, 10 minutes before we went on today, I came up with an excuse to do one live. I'm going to do it Thursday morning with Diane to promote a talk that she's doing for Project Kin at the end of July. July is a longer month. So it happens that she's going to do something on the 29th because I'm traveling on the 31st. So I'm not going to have a program on the 31st, but hey, why not the 29th? It's out of sequence. So we'll do something out of sequence. Yeah, you could do this. You can even use Substack Live with a private Substack. I haven't done it yet with my cousin. And my private Substack, you notice that I never mentioned the name because it's private. But I could, and that way the whole recording goes out to only my cousins and nobody else can see it because it's a private Substack. And even if the email is forwarded, if they click to watch the video, they get sent to the what's the password window, which is very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, name another form of sending video privately. Can't do that with YouTube. It's Vimeo is the way to do it otherwise. And hey, you got to pay for that after some fairly small number of gigs up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Barbara, actually, I'm going to need to get with you one day later this week on the private Substack. I've been trying to get the one set up for the writers group, and things aren't don't look the same way they did on the instructions that you sent me. So I probably did
They
something
changed the
wrong.
interface.
Well,
No, they probably
possibly.
changed the interface,
Well, but I
and
can
it'd be do me a lot of good to update it.
go in and search for RGS Writers Group, and it shows up.
Okay, so let's do this. Can I ask you to share a little bit about what you're trying to do, acknowledging that it's not there
Sure.
yet? And then I'm heading out of town this weekend because here in the US, it's
Yeah.
a holiday. But I have some time after this today or between now and Thursday if you'd like. So we can set that up later.
Yeah.
But do you want to share a little bit
Yeah.
about what you're doing?
Sure. So I think most of you know or may not know. Actually, as of today, I'm the second vice president of the Rochester Genealogy Society, which means that I chair the technology interest group. I'm also a member of the writers group, and on the 10th, I'm speaking to the writers group about Substack. And we're setting up a private Substack for the writers group. Just they want a place where they can share what they're writing that doesn't go out to the general public. And so we're basically, setting up a private Substack, kind of as a collaboration hub to allow the members of the other writers group, and there are 40 or so members. I mean, it's a good sized group. So I'll be talking about Substack in general to them. I've already got a few of them following me, but showing them how to set up their own personal Substacks, but then also setting up this private Substack that we can control who sees what. They before I came on with the writers group, they tried a number of different things. Most recently, Discord, which was a terrible failure, and none of the members of the writers group are teenagers that play video games, and that's really who Discord is designed for. But the writers group just actually is just out with their first book. They did one 13 little stories and published through Amazon, and they worked on it for about a year. And so we're talking now about what we want to do next. Do we want to do another book? Do we, what form we might want to publish in? And I think Substack's just a really good platform for for us to work together on that. Some of them are a little more shy about putting out their unedited writing. Doesn't particularly bother me. I do that all the time. But they do like to during our monthly meetings. Someone has written something. They like to send it out and have everybody read it, or they'll read it to the group, and get some constructive criticism, some help with where they might need edits. So that's one of the 300 or so projects I've got going on right now. um, but so yeah, so we actually are having our first meeting of the new board tonight. So
So the key challenge in this setup is finding a way that all of these 40 or so writers have the opportunity to all participate in this publication and post to each other that won't go outside the
right,
publication. And it is a variation on the instructions that I shared for what I call the private podcast with my cousins. Podcast is just obviously one medium type of media that you can use in Substack. Um, and you've run into trouble. And I appreciate your calling my attention to it because it's probably the fact that they have probably made changes since last September or something when I posted that. So look forward to chatting with you about that. And I also look forward, I had a promise a long time ago, I'd love to have you do a project recipe on exactly how you did that. Because I think it's a wonderful
Yeah.
model that doesn't exist for other genealogy, historical societies, community organizations, and so on to get online, and they can do their Zooms or Substack Lives to connect with each other while at the same time having that privacy that gives them comfort to share, as you say, unedited content.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, we won't make a big deal about it till we know it works. Good rule of thumb.
yeah, no, I just want to make sure I've got it all up and working properly before I do the presentation on the 10th. Um, and
Well, you see, my project recipes come with a money back guarantee. Of course,
right.
it's free, so if you paid me money, I would give it back because it's free. But that aside, I do want to prove that it works. Damn it, it's working for
Yeah.
me. Why isn't it working for you? So let's go
Yeah,
fix that.
I'm sure I missed something in there, and
No, it's all right. It's counterintuitive, and I thought it
yeah,
was such a simple idea. I just go do it, and it took me a lot longer than I expected. And writing out, it's like probably the longest instruction of any of my things. Partly because I was still learning my way around at the time, but that's probably why it was also not very clear. All right, we'll take care of that one.
went to Zoom, of course, over COVID,
Yeah.
keep the programming going. But now we've gone for our general membership meetings. We do one on Zoom, one in person with a Zoom component, next one on
Right.
Zoom. You know, we're kind of easing back into in-person meetings, but I think we'll always go ahead and you know, do them on Zoom as well. Um, you know, we get a fair attendance on people, with people coming, but uh, a lot more on Zoom, except for our annual genealogy in Bloom. We fill the room for that one. Um, Still have a few people that can't make it that'll do it on Zoom, but for that one we bring in big speakers um, and encourage other societies to come and set up a table to hype their membership, and then we do the same when they have their big thing where I've got
Yeah.
I think I've got one on the 12th that I'm gonna have to go to.
Well,
But getting bringing in younger people is actually one of the things we'll be talking about tonight, because I think that's an issue with every genealogy society, and I know NGS is even struggling with that, trying to figure out what the sweet spot is. We've got more colleges here than you can shake a stick at in the Rochester area, and that's one of the things is we're trying to figure out who at each of the colleges we can talk to get in and let their students know that we're here, that we can be a resource for them, particularly history students, and uh, hopefully we'll be able to increase our membership and identify some future leaders. I mean, I think, well, let's see, on our board, I think we've only got one person who's not retired on our board
Yeah.
right now, and she's close. That's but most of us are retired, and which means we have a lot of time to do things and to try to get some things done. But it also, doesn't bode well for the future of an organization
No.
when when you've got more funerals than birthday parties. So that's a big part of what I'm being tasked with the organization is I'm looking at our website and trying to do a refresh on it to make it look more current, get more information out there that would be useful to a beginning genealogist, and make it, right now it kind of looks like grandma's attic.
No, I
Where are
don't
you in, Linda?
Indiana.
The Indiana Genealogy Society is phenomenal
Yeah,
at the
but I
state
have to
level.
go, you have to go so far. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
they
that's the
might be,
problem. They usually have it in either Terre Haute or Indianapolis. You're talking,
yeah.
that's a couple hours. Um, and there's so many people there. The library that's here is a really great genealogy. I mean, it's the whole top floor of this old building, this old library.
Mhm.
And the people that in there are so good, and they find, you go in there and they help you and, get all the plat books out and all this stuff. They're wonderful.
A question for you. Have any of you been familiar with family line or ancestral home based genealogy societies? I know, for example, in Chinese communities, it's very common to have the Tong Family Society, which tracks the family name back through the home villages in China and so on. And for reasons that I will explain at some point when I'm ready with the full story, I have in process of about 2 weeks, forget break walls. I mean, I've discovered palaces on the far side with both American and Swiss connections to my family name, Reese. And I'm thinking about what we can be doing going forward. And I know, Linda, you in that Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minneapolis, or Minnesota uh, area. There are so many families from Germany and Switzerland that settled in that area. I wondered if there isn't aren't societies around family names or regions. In this case, I'm thinking about a canton in Switzerland.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. A lot of the people came to Evansville from Cincinnati and settled in either Evansville or Vincennes. So, I mean, there was a lot of my people, but a lot of people did come because they came in originally to Cincinnati because Cincinnati has such a big German population, and a lot of them left because evidently there was things going on in Evansville. There's land to buy and that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And people were coming from situations that were causing poverty or wars and whatnot to escape that. And then they would go to where they knew people who had already been there.
Right.
So they could communicate. I now know that it was only my great grandfather, so it's not that far back. My great grandmother came with her mother and 5 children. And I was just an amazing story.
And it's
Um,
amazing when you think, like I was wondering, why did my great grandfather come to Evansville? And now I've found so many other people were there. It's just like my grandfather when he left to Rockport to come to Evansville. Why did he do that at 16 years of age? I know why he did, but how could he have? Because he had family. So if you have family or friends in an area, just like all those people in Cincinnati, all those Germans, they all went there because uh, they were relatives or they were friends, and they knew that they could be safe there, and then maybe go from there, maybe go somewhere else. But usually they
yeah.
went where somebody else was. except
Right.
the first person, of course. But
Yeah,
It-
that's actually something that I've been finding out a lot about, and in particular with Indiana, where my Moore ancestors, the biggest piece of them all moved together,
Yep.
and settled up around Muncie.
yeah,
And, but there were other people who had lived in the same town that they did in Ohio who went ahead. So when they decided it was time to move on, they knew somebody, and that's what they did. Um, it's I know Barbara and I've talked about trying to figure out, exactly why the migration happened. And of course, Indiana, there were just a slew of land grants,
Right.
and that's a lot of fun to research, trying to find those land patents and
So
trace it back.
as we close up today's session, Um, I want to sneak a plug in here because I know since the day I started Project Kin, I've been thinking about how can I bring migration stories into a component of Project Kin, and I don't have a handle on it yet. But now that we have now that we have our speakers corner, we can focus on the stories themselves and perhaps even do a series. I know, Jennifer, you've been thinking about this already as she
Yeah.
is matching up speakers for topics into scheduling our programs out from our first program in August. Why did my ancestor migrate? Or why did my ancestor come here? Or whatever. Each of those creates a different narrative in some ways that can be really fascinating. So
Yeah.
I think it would be really a fun program to put together,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's a great topic. It's a really great topic because I know for me, like with Australia, other than the First Nations people, everyone came here from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it was such a long, long, long voyage. I wonder all the time, why on earth would they have done that?
Yeah.
What made them do that?
Yeah.
So I think it's a topic that could branch off into a lot of different directions because you've got, like Bill and Linda are saying, people moving states,
right.
and it was still a long way back then. It wasn't an easy thing to move to another state. Why would they do that? So I think that's a really interesting question to ask when you're researching your family,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
just with the
I mean, and
direction
there,
it can take you.
yeah, and I don't know how it worked in Australia, but there are some pretty horrific stories
Yeah,
around the migration here in the States.
yeah,
Here in Indiana, uh, the things that were done to the Delaware tribe to move them out. When my ancestors first got to Indiana, uh, particular area they were in, uh, their neighbors were the Delaware.
yeah,
They,
yeah,
but our government uh, had policies that did not work in favors of the indigenous population. I mean, we didn't even
yeah,
consider them
Surprise,
citizens.
surprise.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
But
to my view, I think that's one of the most interesting things about having this kind of a forum to share these kinds of stories is that what you start to see is that, we can be shocked by what we see. And then we know now to be looking when you hear the story of the land grant, who was there before?
right.
yeah,
And then you also learn that this wasn't something that was limited to the United States. It certainly happened in Canada. And I'm going to guess it also happened in Australia as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the Trail of Tears itself is as its own kind of story. Most stories, I would venture, I just pulled this out of my hat, but most stories of migration, given how tremendous a struggle it is for a family, especially going back in time, were basis for tremendous sacrifice
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's amazing stories that can be so compelling to not only hear about, but informative to what we learn about our ancestors and why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And when and it would be the same for going across country. But when they were coming across the seas,
Oh yeah.
they just knew they would never see their families ever
Yeah.
again. And you just think, how do you make that type of decision? Yeah, so it's just interesting. I found that, like with Wales, with my 2 times great grandparents, asking that question of myself has sent me down so many rabbit holes about the history of Wales and what was going on at the time. And it's really interesting. Doesn't do anything for getting work done, but it's really interesting. But questions, research you may not do if you didn't ask that question of yourself.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think we'll do a few of those on Speaker's Corner, because I just think it
exactly. It's not
might
just
start
one,
off
it's going
as
to
a
be several.
migration topic, but
Yeah.
it can go off in different areas. Yeah.
So for Project Kin, I want to have some kinds of events that are focused on kind of how you get it done. The example that you gave, Bill, for what you're going to be doing with your historical society is a great example.
Yeah.
Or this Speaker's Corner is a very special new one, which will actually focus on the stories themselves. Perhaps out of that, there may be some very interesting ways that we can talk about best practices for getting those stories, or where to
Yeah.
find the hooks
Mhm.
for those stories that are in your own family tree. What are the questions to ask to be able to get in there? And so today's session certainly took us from
Yeah.
little tips and tricks about using apps and how profiles work into this larger conversation about what are we doing now that we're here. And I think that's really important. It's also, by the way, what we try to do in our roundtable discussion, which are happening next week.
Yeah.
Tuesday, both in that case, we do roundtables both for the Atlantic time and the Pacific time. And these sessions we rotate between Pacific and Atlantic, taking Atlantic this month and Pacific next month. So I want to thank all of you for joining today. We do put these into a recording so that all of you out there in the internet can enjoy the discussion and join in the notes at the bottom of this post. And I want to thank you all. I'm going to pause or stop the recording, and you all can stay on here if you'd like and continue the conversation. That's the added value of being here in person. So here we go. Thank you again for following and joining me in the recording.